Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got 4 replays in the French Tier 6 Tracteur Super Heavy Tank, the AMX Tracteur C MLE 1940, or we'll just call it the MLE 40. This is one of the new French multi-turreted super heavy tanks that's come out. Obviously this is Tier 6 in the line. So if you do like the video, as always, don't forget to like and subscribe down below, as it really does help out the channel. And yes, what we're going to do for this video is the same as we always do for these new tech trees, and that is this first replay is the tank completely stock. We'll go through its stock, and then we'll go through the 2 gun upgrades that you get when you get to the next couple of replays. So, the MLE 40, what's it like as a tank? Well, it's pretty hit and miss, to be honest. It's one of those tanks where, when you're top tier, it can be very, very nice, and even against Tier 7s and Tier 8s, the armour on this thing can be okay. But as soon as they have really high pen, or as soon as a lot of them fight high premium, they just start to go through you. Plus, there is flat plates on the turret, and especially on this stock turret, that are only 100mm thick, and they are pretty flat as well, which means that most vehicles will pen them if they catch the flat sections of the turret, which generally means the armour on this tank, like I say, is very, very hit and miss. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. What it does have, though, is a very good array of guns. You've got a good 90mm gun when you get it fully upgraded. The stock gun is this 105mm gun that you got at the top of the previous MLE 39, was it? Yeah, the MLE 39, which is an absolutely solid gun, and then you get an even better 105 when you get fully upgraded, meaning that when you get into the fight, it can be really, really good at just getting damage consistently pumped out, and in a brawly situation, this tank can be very nice. Now, naturally, it is also very, very slow, and it's actually faster than the Tier 5, though. That's good, because the Tier 5 goes at 20 kilometers an hour, this goes at 25, so that's better for this vehicle, but it's still exceptionally slow. So, the MLE 40, when it's stock, has a 25 km an hour top speed, 10 km an hour reverse speed, 900 horsepower engine, which is 8.95 horsepower per ton ratio, which means, yeah, it's very slow. Very slow. It's not got the best top speed in the universe, but at least it's faster than the previous tank. 19.49 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed means it does actually turn that little bit faster than the previous tank on its tracks, which is okay, but it's still slow to turn left and right on its tracks. With 18.52 degrees a second on the turret traverse as well, the turret is also pretty slow to turn, which is a bit of pain. 1.76 on soft, 1.23 on medium, and 1.25 on firm. Again, pretty decent soft terrain resistance. Medium and firm terrain resistances, though, aren't the best for this vehicle. That can lead to it feeling a bit slow and sluggish depending on the terrain it is on. And to be honest, it already feels slow and sluggish because the power to weight is also pretty poor. 415 meters of view range while stock as well means you can spot for yourself okay, but it's still pretty blind, to be honest. It's not got the best view range in the universe on this vehicle, which can be a bit of a letdown. 1.11 accuracy during rotation with a 2.27 accuracy during movement as a pair is not great on this stock 105mm gun, and it means the aim circle does bloom out quite a lot. And you've got a 2.93 second aim time as well, meaning it does take a wee while to get this gun fully aimed in on target, making it a bit of a pain sometimes when you have to sit and wait for it to get aimed in. And since you're a big target and your armor isn't the best on the turret, for example, and people do shoot you there, then it can feel a bit of pain as you're sitting there aiming while they just instantly butter your turret. 10 degrees of gun depression is nice, though, for this 105mm gun, meaning you can be pretty good on a ridgeline if you get it there, and you don't struggle, depending on bumps in the terrain, to be able to get your gun down on target and be able to fight back. 0.43 accuracy at 100 meters is derpy. It's very, very derpy. This gun is derpy on this stock 105mm gun, but it does hit pretty hard with the 330 alpha on the premium rounds, which can be quite good for it. With 9.4 second reload on this 105mm gun, which is 1900 DPM, which is pretty decent for a tier 6. Again, for a stock gun, it's pretty nice as a stock gun, honestly, on this vehicle. As you've got AP, APCR, and HE with 145mm of penetration on the standard AP, 203mm of penetration on the APCR, and 54 on the HE. Now, naturally, as you can see, we're running full gold. Why are we doing that? Because the premium APCR round has 330 alpha compared to the standard AP round, which has 300. So you're doing yourself a disservice by not firing the premium round, because you lose out on DPM, penetration, alpha damage, all that good stuff, which is why we do it. And you've got 810 meters a second shell velocity on the standard AP and 986 on the premium APCR. So they're both below that 1,000 meters a second average, meaning you do have to give a decent amount of lead at distance to be able to hit your targets. But yeah, generally this vehicle, when it's stock, is fairly slow and sluggish. Like I said, the gun can be a bit derpy, but to be honest, it's not the worst stock gun in the universe. It's not like the Tier 5 that had a terrible stock gun, and then you got to the 90mm, which was sort of okay. This starts off pretty decent with its stock gun, and that was a very, very average game there for the vehicle in a Tier 8 lobby, which is obviously the worst matchmaking it could possibly get, which is why I also wanted to show it, because that was a very average game for it. It showed that you're not... And the reason I wanted that as well is because of the troll nature of the armour, where I said that the armour on this vehicle isn't the best for the kind of super heavy it is, but occasionally it does bounce quite a bit, and it's pretty inconsistent with the way it works. Like the SFAT 105 drove around the corner, fully aimed his shot, and then shot at our turret and bounced. And that thing's got 270 pen, you know? That's why I mean about this tank, and same as the Tier 5, and it's the same as the Tier 7, where the armour seems to work pretty well, and then all of a sudden someone flicks a switch, and all of a sudden your armour doesn't mean anything anymore, and all of a sudden you just get penned by absolutely everything, and you sit there crying going, why does my armour not work anymore? You know, it's kind of like that. So we're on to the second replay, and this second replay we are now fully upgraded. And we've got this 90mm gun, which again is at the top of the upgrade path. This is technically the best gun you can get, technically by the upgrade path. But personally, again, I think the 105mm that comes before this is the better gun for the tank, in general of how it's going to feel. Slightly less penetration, granted, but generally, it just feels nicer with the 330 Alpha. This gun is far more consistent. Again, it's going to be down to you and your preference into which gun you actually use. So now you're fully upgraded, you've got that same 25 km/h top speed, same reverse speed at 10, 1,100 horsepower engine, which is 10.89 horsepower per ton ratio. So the horsepower per ton is actually better, meaning it gets to the top speed that little bit easier, which can be okay. It's still pretty slow and sluggish though. 21.65 degrees a second on the hull rotation speed means this tank does turn a little bit faster now you've got the fully upgraded tracks. The terrain resistances have dropped down to 1.67, 1.14 and 1.15 respectively. You've now got 428 metres of view range, which again, still fairly blind, but better than it was. 20.84 degrees a second on the turret rotation speed as well is still slower than the tracks, but it's a tiny bit faster than it was. 1.09 accuracy during rotation on this 90mm gun, with a 1.42 accuracy during movement. Now, the accuracy during rotation isn't the best. During movement's pretty good, though, and it means the aim circle does bloom out a little bit, but it's not terrible. And you've got a 2.33 second aim time with the build that we run as well, which, again, isn't too bad, considering that the aim circle doesn't bloom out absolutely massively. You still have 9 degrees of gun depression on this vehicle as well, which can be pretty handy for a situation like you're seeing here on Wide Park in this Tier 8 game. You've got 8.16 second reload with that 0.38 accuracy at 100 meters. So again, the gun can be a little bit derpy, but at the same time, it's still pretty decent. 8.16 second reload, like I say, with the 1764 DPM. So when you put this 90mm gun on, you're actually losing DPM compared to the 105s, which again, you're losing the DPM for the higher penetration of the gun and the slightly more consistent accuracy of it. And that's what the trade-off is. As you've got 212 penetration on the standard AP, 259 on the premium APCR, and 45 on the HE. So generally, this gun is very, very good, and it's very good in a matchup like this, because again, you don't really struggle to pen anything. And if you do, you can just switch to the premium rounds. But you do have that slightly slower DPM than the 105s, and that can be definitely a bit of pain. And also, you're hitting with a more medium tanky gun with 240 Alpha as opposed to 330, when you fire the premium rounds of the 105. But this is definitely the more free-to-play gun in the fact that if you don't want to fire full premium and get the best out of the gun because of the fact that you have to fire full premium to get that, you can just run this gun for sure. But you've got 1,000 metres a second shell velocity on the standard AP and 1,250 on the premium APCR, by the way, which is fantastic velocity and is nice for the 90mm as well. So what do I run in terms of recruit and equipment on this AMX Tractor C MLE 40? Well, I run Born Leader, Situational Awareness, Track Mechanic, Snapshot, Run and Gun, Off-Road Driving, Armour Angling, Clutch Braking and Rapid Aim, same as the previous tank, and then Advanced Loader, Gun Stabilizer, GLD and Optics. The Optics to be able to get that 428 metres of view range with the Situational Awareness, so we can at least try and spot for ourselves. The GLD to get the aim time down to the 2.33 with this 90mm gun, and it's also more helpful for the 105 as well. Gun Stabilizer with Snapshot and Running Gun to get the accuracy during movement and rotation as down as low as humanly possible, so that the bloom isn't too bad. The Advanced Loader to get the best out of the DPM. Clutch braking and rapid aim to make the turret traverse and track traverse better, as they are pretty slow. Armour angling to reduce the amount of damage coming into the tank by 5%, as we are a brawly heavy tank. And off-road driving just to reduce the ground resistance so we're better with our top speed. As we finished that second game there with the 1673 base XP, 2.2k damage. Pretty nice game there for the tank in a bottom tier matchup again with that technical top gun, as that is the last gun you actually unlock on this tank. But now we're on to the third replay, and this third replay, like I say, is the gun that I prefer, and I think the gun that is actually best for the vehicle. But the caveat is you have to fire a lot of premium, because naturally, that's where you get the higher alpha damage on this vehicle, because you get the 330 alpha. So this is the second 105. This is different to the stock 105mm gun that you get here on the MLE 40. So, with this new 105mm gun on this tank, you actually have 9 degrees of gun depression, same as you do on the 90mm, 1.18 accuracy during rotation, 1.52 accuracy during movement, which again, the accuracy during rotation is really not great, and it means the aim circle does bloom out quite a bit when you rotate the turret. But the accuracy during movement at 1.52 is really not too bad. 2.76 second aim time is bad though, and that's why we run the GLD, because it's even worse if you don't run the GLD, meaning it does take a wee bit of time to get this gun aimed in. 0.41 accuracy at 100 meters, again, is pretty derpy, so if you don't get this fully aimed in, it will miss quite a lot. Even if you're fully aimed in, it does still like a miss, because the 0.41 accuracy is derpy. But generally, the gun doesn't feel that bad, and like I say, when you're hitting, it hits hard for that 330 for this tank as well, at tier 6. For tier 6 is the way I put it. 9.93 second reload on this 105mm gun is 1812 DPM, so you actually have better DPM on this 105 than the 90mm as well. It's actually worse DPM than the stock 105 though, but you do get better penetration as well as better accuracy. So if you actually wanted the slightly better DPM, you should probably run the stock 105. But like I say, it's the penetration really as well, and you get better velocity on this APCR round. So you've got 165 penetration on the standard AP, with 223 penetration on the premium APCR, 54mm of penetration on the HE, which is 300 alpha on the standard AP, 330 on the premium APCR, and 360 on the HE, which is, like I say, it's the archaic old 105mm gun that a lot of the French heavies got, or the lower tier French heavies, like the AMX M445 and the ARL 44. They get this gun as well, and it's exactly the same on those two tanks. In fact, for the AMX M445 and for the ARL 44, it revolutionises those tanks. Because sure, it's a bit derpier, but you just hit that bit harder and you have better DPM with it than you do with the 90mm, and it generally makes those tanks feel a lot nicer to play. And it's pretty similar on the MLE 40 as well. Just having that 330 alpha, the rolls you see, it is pretty nice. And you've got 850 meters a second shell velocity on the standard AP, and 1063 meters a second shell velocity on the premium APCR, which again is below average on the AP, so you've got to give a decent amount of lead at distance to be able to hit your targets with that AP. And you're only slightly above average with the APCR velocity, which again still means you have to give a decent amount of lead to be able to hit your targets. So make sure that you are leading correctly to be able to hit your shots with this gun. The other thing you get on this vehicle is a 47mm gun in the frontal turret that you have on this tank, which has 45mm of penetration on the standard AP, which is not going to pen anything at all at this tier, pretty much. And 79mm of penetration on the premium APCR, which is what we've got full premium APCR, because the 79mm of penetration is only just going to go through quite a few of those vehicles as well, and only just. And it still struggles with quite a lot of tanks you're going to face. So it's not the greatest of guns in that turret, and it can be a bit of pain in regards to getting it to actually work, which again can be a bit frustrating. By the way, you've got to be careful when you're using this tank, same as the tier 7 as well, that when you're trying to get gun depression over the front of the tank, as soon as you look over where the turret is, you completely lose gun depression, and it can jut your aim up. And I've been caught out by that so many times, where I've been trying to aim at someone, and I move that little bit too close to the turret, and it ends up jutting the gun up, and I miss my shot, and I die for it. You know, it's one of those things you've got to be very, very careful of. But yeah, you do get this 47mm gun, which, like I say, can keep damage flowing, and especially when you're against some of the lightly armoured targets like Ballsigs, Iron Rains, Scorpions, you know, any kind of lightly armoured TD or lightly armoured light tank or anything like that, you can keep damage constantly racking up. And if you hit something that's got, say, 342 HP, and you hit them for 339 with the APCR round, and leave them on a slither of HP, you can just finish them off with the 47mm, and that can be pretty handy. And plus, you have this all-fire round mode, not round, all-fire mode, which if you press left on the D-pad, so the same as pressing to use a turbo mode, and I've just used it there, same as if you were using the siege mode or a turbo mode, press left on the D-pad, and you can see the little icon will come next to each section of the bar, when you've got exactly like that with the 2 arrows pointing at each reload bar. It's just like the double barrels, it will just fire both guns. And if your main gun is reloading, you can still fire the little gun every single time it's reloaded. So it's quite handy to be able to do that rather than keep switching between primary and the turret gun, you know, it's one of those that can be pretty handy for that. So this third replay here on Highway, we've managed to get 3.3k damage, 252 assistance with the 3 kills so far. Just the box tank left alive, who's towards their spawn. And we managed to win the town in a nice little brawl. And unfortunately for us, we don't get anywhere near the SU-100Y, but we do end up finishing with the victory. The 3 kills, 3.3k damage, 252 assistance damage, the first class, the high caliber, the steel wool, with the 1896 base XP. Really nice game there for the MLE 40 over top tier with that 105mm gun. Because like I say, this is the gun that generally, depending on the matchup, I mean, to be honest, this gun feels the best gun for the tank, because when you are in these top tier matchups like these two here, it just packs a punch, and tier for tier it hits harder than most of the guns it's going to face. There's only a few guns at this tier that hit as hard as 330 Alpha, say T150 or the KV85. T150? Yeah, T150 or the KV85, or maybe some of the Derp guns if they were firing heat, right? But they're not your more standard guns like this. Most of the other guns are hitting for 200, maybe 240 or 180, that sort of thing. So 330 feels very impactful, and when you're getting into a brawl and when you get into that action where you're actually fighting tooth and nail, that gun feels great in those matchups. But then, like the tier 8 matchups that we had in the first replay and the second replay, the 105 also feels more impactful in those kinds of matchups as well, because while their average alpha is higher than this general tier, so they're hitting you quite hard. So when you've got the 330 alpha instead of the 240, again, you feel more impactful with every shot you're putting into those tier 8s. And it just feels a little bit nicer to be able to go through. And because when you're using this gun as well, and you're firing the full APCR, because that's the way you're going to get the most out of it with the 330 alpha and have that higher DPM, you got 223mm of penetration, which is not going to really struggle with any vehicles, really, unless it's a Type 4 heavy or a Moisture. But you don't see those kinds of matchups all that often in a tier 7. A lot of the time when you're playing tier 7, it'll be tier 8 games. And there's not many tanks at tier 8 that you're not going to pen with 223, as a lot of the tier 8s these days have about that as a standard pen, so it's alright for you. So generally, this 105, for me personally, is the gun I'm going to pick. Like I say, it is down to personal preference. You might hate this gun because it feels a bit more derpy and that sort of stuff. And then that means you prefer the 90mm. Because that is the other thing I did forget to mention, is that this tank does have 4 gun options. The stock 105 that you saw in the first replay, which is the very first gun you get on the tank. The second the first 90mm gun, which is the top gun, technically, from the previous vehicle. I just say, just don't use it. Just fire full APCR from the stock 105, and then move on to either the 90mm or the top 90mm or the top 105 when you unlock them. Just ignore the fact that you get that other 90mm, because the 105 is just generally better, personally. But there we go. So this fourth and final replay is here on this map, which is Derpenberg. And so far we're up to 934 damage with 485 assistance damage. There's a medium tank on our right, which is the M4A3E2 Jumbo Sherman. So we're just going to put some shots in. You can see I've got all fire mode on. Why? Because, well, if I get the side and rear of people, maybe I'll just be able to keep putting shots into them and keep damage flowing. But, well, even the side of a Jumbo Sherman, the penetration just isn't enough. We're just not going through it, which is, yeah, sad times for us. We're up to 1264 damage. And now we're in that position where we know there's an STRV-74 in between those buildings over there, but we can't see him because he got unspotted and we don't have the view range. He's got okay-ish camo, We've got 428 meters of view range. That means we'll struggle to spot him, and that's where the blindness of this tank comes into play, which can be just that little bit awkward. So we see where some of those tanks are currently spotted towards the cap circle. We were keeping ourselves moving towards the STRV, maybe trying to get the artillery that's currently spotted at B4. Just aiming for the gap there where I thought that the STRV might pop up, but he's actually a little bit lower than I anticipated. So we end up missing the chance to get a shot into that guy, and I decided, okay, you know what? Instead of going for the A B line, what I'm going to do is go for the cap area, because there's a T150 in and around that cap area. They've got one or two guys in it as well, so we need to go try and help our heavy tank that's currently brawling with the heavy tank that's on our side of the river in the Excelsior. So the little tier 5 light tank Leopard kills the KV-1, who was the guy that was protecting the cap. So that's made the decision to go back towards our cap circle even better, because we need to get there. There's one, it's not dire, because we're close enough. It's 1 minute odd, 20 odd seconds to be able to defend it. We'll get there no matter what. We see the KV-1's about to cross the open, so we wait up, aim the shot in, get the shot straight through his side, but yet again, he's at 400 meters. I may have no camo and be as big as a house, but KV-1 that's also pretty stock there, I can tell by the turret, is more boxy, which means he's stock. Has absolutely no view range, same as us, which means that he can't actually see us until we fired at him. Well, he couldn't even see us even though we fired at him. We actually get spotted by the guys across the river. So we see the AMX Tracteur C MLE 39, which is the tier 5 version of this vehicle, and we actually bounce straight off the front of his turret, but this one goes straight through the cupola there, because we managed to aim it up for the cupola. It's a bit more awkward to pen the turret of that thing because of the angling on it compared to this tank, because this tank's fully upgraded turret, again, is 140mm thick, so the top turret is actually better than the stock turret, but you still have that fairly flat plate next to the gun, which means that especially the higher pen rounds can catch shots into that plate and can be a bit of a pain. So we aim up the main gun into the lower plate of the T150 there, finishing him off, and the Excelsior drives around the corner, so we're going to use the multi-turret system here with the gun to get the shots into the side of this Excelsior, who just sort of sat there and took it and said, yes, kill me. And so we went, well, all right then, I'll put an end to your wicked ways, Mr. Excelsior. That's fine. I'll take the 5th kill of the game, as we put ourselves up to 2.5k damage with the 813 assistance damage. We know where 3 tanks are. We know where all 3 are. There's a TD on the left, unspotted currently, with a medium tank at B2 and the light tank that's just got himself unspotted there. So we see the gyro, get it aimed up, put the shot in. Thankfully, he doesn't pen us there, he only tracks us, but because he was made of paper, we could just, as long as we hit him, we were going to kill him there, and get ourselves our top gun, which is a good time, with that 2.7k damage. So we know where the Leopard light tank is. We're going to keep ourselves moving towards him, because I'm anticipating the medium to stay behind the ridges where the light tank is. But in fact, no, there's the Ram 2. We aim up the shot, lead it perfectly, finish him off there for our 7th kill of this game. Radley Walters is up for grabs. Let's go. We put the shot into the Leopard, fully aim the shot up, and we track him. It goes slightly to the left and does track damage, blows his tracks off, doesn't kill him, but it was a guaranteed kill, and we still secure a good game there. But sad times, we couldn't pick up the Radley Walters. Ace Tanker, Devastator, Top Gun, High Caliber, the Steel Wall, with that 2.2k base XP. Really nice game there for the MLE 40. But like I said, this tank is a very, very hit and miss vehicle. It's one of those where sometimes it feels really, really good. The guns are fabulous. All the guns on this tank are really nice. But the armor is one of those where it works until it really doesn't. And that's just a trait of the whole line, to be honest. It's one of those where you go, yes, the armor's great. And then it just starts getting penned left, right, and centre. And you go, oh. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!